Africa, the cradle of civilization. A land of ancient power, hidden knowledge, unmatched wealth, and proud kingdoms. But too often the world tells a different story. A story of poverty, of struggle, of darkness. Today we invite you to discover the real Africa, rich in history, heritage, and humanity. Long before the skyscrapers of New York, the palaces of Europe, or the factories of the East, there were cities that shined like gold in Africa. There were empires that governed vast territories with wisdom, and scholars whose ideas helped shape the world. This is not just a history lesson. This is a reawakening. A journey across deserts, rainforests, savannas, and mighty rivers. From the ancient bones of the first humans to the golden reign of Musa. From the libraries of Timbuktu to the monuments of Nubia and beyond. This is Africa's story, told by Africa. Our story begins where life itself began, East Africa. In the dusty plains of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, the earth holds secrets millions of years old. Here, scientists discovered some of the oldest human remains known to mankind. The most famous? Lucy, a 3.2-million-year-old ancestor unearthed in Ethiopia's Awash Valley. But Lucy wasn't alone. These early humans, known as hominins, walked upright, crafted tools, controlled fire, and migrated across the world. From Africa they spread into Europe, Asia, and eventually the Americas. So yes, we are all descendants of Africa. The continent gave birth to humanity, and with it, the foundations of intelligence, creativity, and resilience. While the rest of the world was still in its infancy, African people were adapting, hunting, gathering, and forming early communities. These weren't just primitive tribes. They understood the rhythm of nature. They knew the stars, the seasons, and how to work with the land. They were farmers, herders, healers, and astronomers, long before history had written their names. Africa wasn't just where humans began. It's where we first became human. As time moved forward, Africa gave rise to some of the greatest civilizations in human history. Many older than Rome, richer than Babylon, and more advanced than often believed. Let's begin in the northeast, with ancient Egypt, or as its people called it, Kemet, the land of the black. Kemet was a land of innovation. They built pyramids so precisely aligned with the stars that modern engineers still marvel. They developed writing, hieroglyphics, recorded laws, medicine, and spiritual texts. They practiced surgery, understood mathematics, and even mapped the heavens. But Egypt wasn't alone. To its south stood Nubia, home to the powerful kingdom of Kush. Nubia produced gold, iron, and great military leaders. Its queens, called Candakes, were warriors and rulers, commanding armies and defending their lands. One Candake famously defied Roman conquest, pushing back Caesar Augustus's legions. To the west of the Nile, the Carthaginian Empire rose in North Africa, led by Hannibal, one of the greatest military commanders in history. He crossed the Alps with elephants to fight the Romans, something no army had ever done. Further east, in what is now Ethiopia, we find the kingdom of Aksum. Aksum was powerful, wealthy, and internationally connected. It minted its own coins, traded with India, Arabia, and Byzantium, and even became one of the first African nations to adopt Christianity. In southern Africa, the kingdom of Great Zimbabwe rose between the 11th and 15th centuries. It built massive stone structures without mortar, complex cities that housed thousands. It traded gold and ivory with merchants from as far as China and Persia. These were not isolated cultures. They were part of a vibrant network of African kingdoms, each with its own traditions, achievements, and contributions. History books often overlook them. But they were there. Rising, building, ruling, inspiring awe, then and now. Now we travel to West Africa, where golden empires once reigned supreme. First, the Ghana Empire, not the modern nation but an ancient kingdom that ruled from the 6th to 13th centuries. Ghana controlled the gold and salt trade routes across the Sahara Desert. Its kings grew wealthy by taxing goods passing through their territory, so much so that Ghana was known as the Land of Gold. Next came the Mali Empire, perhaps the most famous of all. At its height in the 14th century, Mali stretched across modern-day Mali, Senegal, Guinea, Niger, and beyond. Its most legendary ruler? Mansa Musa. When Musa made his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he brought tens of thousands of followers and so much gold that he caused inflation in cities he passed. Historians say he was the richest man to ever live, even richer than Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk today. But Musa's wealth wasn't just gold. He built mosques, schools, and libraries. He made Timbuktu into one of the greatest centers of knowledge in the world. There, scholars studied math, astronomy, medicine, law, and philosophy, writing over 700,000 manuscripts, many of which still survive. Following Mali, the Songhai Empire emerged as the most powerful force in West Africa. Led by kings like Sunni Ali and Askia Muhammad, Songhai expanded its borders with a powerful army. They built roads, systems of taxation, and supported Islamic education. The city of Gao became their capital, a hub of commerce, faith, and culture. These empires were not primitive. They had functioning governments, laws, economic systems, and diplomatic ties with Europe and the Middle East. While Europe was still emerging from the Dark Ages, West Africa was writing books, building cities, and debating science and theology. This is the Africa that schools often forget. But it is real. And it is magnificent. African history isn't only about gold and empires. It's about people. Their languages, rituals, songs, stories, and art. Africa is home to over 2,000 distinct languages and even more ethnic groups. Each has its own traditions, dances, philosophies, and symbols. In West Africa, griots, oral historians, kept the memory of their people alive. They passed down stories of heroes, kings, battles, and values. Their voices were libraries without books. In East Africa, Swahili culture blended African, Arab, Persian, and Indian influences, producing unique architecture, music, and art. In Central Africa, people crafted masks and sculptures to communicate with the spiritual world. Each piece carried sacred meaning, symbolizing ancestry, morality, or divine protection. Across the continent, African societies mastered iron smelting, wood carving, cloth weaving, and medicine using herbs and minerals. They understood geometry, agriculture, astronomy, and seasonal cycles. They built cities aligned with the stars and monuments that tracked the movements of the sun and moon. Africa's culture was not static. It evolved, adapted, and grew with its people. It shaped their sense of belonging, unity, and identity. And it still does. Africa did not exist in isolation. Its empires traded across the Sahara, over the Indian Ocean, and into the Mediterranean. They exchanged not only gold and ivory, but ideas, art, religion, and technology. African scholars influenced Islamic learning in Egypt, Persia, and Spain. African soldiers served in armies from Rome to Arabia. African merchants brought goods to Venice, Istanbul, and India. Even as far as China, records mention African diplomats and trade missions. And through the African diaspora, through forced migration and voluntary exploration, African culture spread globally. They shaped music, religion, food, and language in the Americas, the Caribbean, and beyond. Jazz, reggae, blues, samba, and hip-hop all find roots in African rhythm and storytelling. So do spirituals, soul food, and community rituals in distant lands. Africa has always given more to the world than the world admits. Its fingerprints are everywhere. Africa's history is not a footnote, it's a foundation. The first steps of humanity were taken on African soil. The first monuments, written texts, mathematical equations, and philosophical debates all flourished here. Africa is not poor, it has been plundered. Africa is not backward, it has been silenced. But now, it's time to listen. Listen to the voices of the ancestors. To the echoes of griots and the wisdom of queens. To the courage of empires and the brilliance of scholars. This is Africa. Rich, resilient, rising. It's time the world saw Africa not as a continent in crisis, but as a cradle of greatness. And this is just the beginning. Subscribe to this channel as we continue to explore the untold stories, the hidden kingdoms, and the powerful legacy of a land too great to be ignored. Because Africa's history is your history, and it's time it was told.